welcome to my lesson on how humans breathe, or in anatomical terms, the respiratory system. Now the functions are to move air in and out of the body, also for vocalization, so as air is expelled through the vocal cords, then it's manipulated by the mouth, speech is produced. It's also important for temperature fluctuations. I'm going to use an example. You're in very extreme cold weather. Now you're going to breathe this cold air into the body, but that can actually be harmful. So as you breathe in the air, your body warms it up to send down to the lungs so it's not so harsh. It's also for protection from pathogens. You don't want pathogens, bacteria and viruses that you're inhaling to constantly attack the body, so the respiratory system protects against this. Right, so I'm going to start with the nasal cavity. This consists of the nasal mucosa membrane, and what this does is it lines the nasal cavities. It is also continuous with the skin. Now the mucosal membrane is the thickest and it's the most vascular over the nasal conchae. It's also thick over the septum, which is actually the part between your nose. So where your two holes are, that middle bit is called the septum. Right, so the mucosal membrane is thick over the septum. I've explained that. Let's move on. On the floor of the nasal cavity is known as the metasis, and over various sinuuses, the mucosal membrane is actually very thin. Now, this is one of the most commonly infected tissues in adults and children. The reason why is because of inflammation of the tissue. When you have a stuffy nose or a headache, or when you have to breathe through your mouth because your nose is blocked, well, basically the tissues in your nose are inflamed. Let's move on to the nasal pharynx. This is the part of the throat situated posterior to the nasal cavity and the mouth. It's superior to the esophagus and the larynx, and it plays an important role in vocalization. It's part of a trio belonging to the pharynx, which includes the nasopharynx, the oropharynx, and the laryngopharynx. Okay, so the oral cavity, which is basically the mouth, it has three different names. So it has the mouth, the buccal cavity, which comes from the Latin bucca, cheek, and also the Latin cavum oris. What does this do? This is where food is placed and vocal sounds are produced. It contains the tongue and the teeth. In the oral cavity we also have the gingiva, which is the gums, and it consists of mucosal tissue. This lies between the mandible and the maxilla inside of the mouth. The uvula, so this is located at the posterior edge of the middle soft palate, and it's composed of connective tissue containing a number of glands and some muscle fibers. So we move to the larynx, which is commonly referred to as the voice box. It is an organ in the neck involved in breathing, sound production, and protecting the trachea against food aspiration. The larynx houses the vocal cords, and it manipulates pitch and volume, which is essential for phonation. They are situated just below where the tracta of the pharynx splits into the trachea and the esophagus. The esophagus is the part of the digestive system. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the trachea, which is also known as the windpipe. It is a tube that connects the pharynx and the larynx to the lungs. All animals with a pair of lungs will have a trachea. At the top of the trachea, there's a cricoid cartilage which attaches to the larynx. The trachea extends the larynx and branches the two primary bronchi. So just above the trachea is something called the epiglottis. So as you swallow, this closes the opening to the larynx. Now just think of a door, and when you swallow, the doors close it. The reason this is really vital is because if you're eating food, you want it to go down the esophagus, you do not want it to go down the trachea. If it goes down to the trachea, it's going to the lungs, and that's when serious problems occur. So you don't want this, and this is why the epiglottis is very important. Now the trachea develops in the second month of development. It is lined with an epithelium that has goblet cells which produce protective mucins. The trachealis is a smooth muscle responsible for the function of constricting the trachea, allowing air to be expelled with more force. An example of this would be coughing. Okay, so this leads us to the bronchi, which is the airway and the respiratory tract that conducts air to the lungs. There's a right and a left bronchus, just like there is a right and a left lung. These branch to smaller tubes known as bronchioles. So as you can see on the screen, these are the bronchioles. And just to note that gas exchange does not take place in the bronchi, it takes place in the alveoli, which is the next thing I want to talk about. Okay, so the alveoli they're just air sacs, and you have millions of these covering the lungs. And just to note that when you have a cold, well, basically the alveoli have a thin layer of mucus around them just for protection. But when you're sick and you start to cough phlegm, well, what this phlegm is mucus. It's mucus from the lungs. When you're ill, the mucus just fills the alveoli up. So imagine a tank of water and the tank is just empty, and then it just fills up full of water. That's exactly what's happening in the alveoli. And then you cough to try and clear the lungs. So basically you're trying to clear your alveoli and you cough up phlegm. So that's what happens when you're ill. Another thing to note, because it's quite interesting, is if you've ever wondered why we hiccup. Well, this is caused by a rush of air going down to the lungs. You've took too much oxygen into the body and your body's hiccuping to try and get the air out. Now, that's basically what it is. Okay, so I just wanted to quickly show you a few symptoms of smoking. So this is a video of what your lungs look like after years of smoking. And basically, your alveoli is just ruined because when you smoke, the fumes basically destroy the alveoli, so you can't breathe as well, and this is basically what it looks like. So I hope you enjoyed my video on the respiratory system. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be back with another video very soon. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.